Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you are popping in, will you say hi in the chat box to let me know that you're here and you can hear me? We'll give everybody just a couple minutes to log in. Hey, Talitha, good to see you. Yay, glad y'all can hear me. Okay, we were having technical difficulties like up until about 30 seconds ago, so had me a little bit frazzled. All right, well, we will maybe wait 1 or 2 minutes to let people jump in. Michelle already started us off and is letting us know where she's from. So if y'all wouldn't mind just telling us where you are tuning in from, what grade you teach, just to give a little bit of context to me for our conversation today. New Jersey, I'm looking over here at my other screen at the chat box. Rhode Island, 7th grade, 5th grade, first year teacher, Michelle. Welcome, excited. Meredith, a Texas girl. I'm a Texas girl too, born and raised. Oh my gosh, this is going fast. Sarah, you teach K through 4. That's a lot. Jamie, I saw Melbourne and I thought Australia for a second. Okay, a lot of y'all in here. Austin, Texas. Yes, yes. Yay, more Texas people. Moving from 5th to 4th. Oh, moving from 5th and 4th to kindergarten. Wow, okay, that's a big jump, big jump. Got a Canadian gal in here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started because I don't really see too many people. Kuwait, awesome. I don't see too many other people jumping in. So welcome to the Master Your Classroom in 2020 workshop. We are going to spend this next hour doing exactly what this tagline says, which is figuring out how to get you an organized classroom so that you can make an impact on your teaching and not lose your mind in 2020, which we've all already kind of lost our minds this year, right? So we're going to just try and get you a plan so that way you can go into this year organized and prepared. I'm excited to spend this next hour with you. We'll take about 40 minutes to run through all the information here, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So let's dive in. I want to start though with this quote on classroom organization because I think it's important that we establish this as like our baseline of what classroom organization is. And it's more than just a pretty classroom. It's your routines, your flow, your management, all of these things go together to create an organized classroom. And so, sorry, one sec. Today, we're going to talk about more than just how to actually set up your classroom, which is super critical, super important. But it's not the only thing. There are some other things that I want you to have in place in your classroom for the first day of school so that you can be organized. Because if you can get these foundational pieces of your classroom in place, then you're going to be on track to mastering your classroom this year. So real quick, I'm going to go through what we're going to do today, but there is going to be a poll in the chat box about your school's plan for this upcoming year, if you have one at all. So will y'all, there's the poll. Will y'all let us know what it looks like for you for the upcoming school year, just so that way I know, okay, pretty much no plan yet, which is absolutely crazy to me that we're like July and we still don't know what the year is going to look like. One person, yes, total distance learning to start the year. Well, at least you have something to work with. Oh, shoot. Okay, sorry. I just exited out of the, okay, sorry. I exited out of the chat room. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is how to figure out your focus for this upcoming school year, because as teachers, there is so much that we can be doing and we can't do it all. So we're going to talk about how to choose a focus and then how to make a plan for your summer so that you can balance working on school stuff, but also taking time for yourself. Nobody wants to be spending all their time working on school during the summer, right? Then we're going to talk about the formula that you need for an organized classroom, all the things that you need in place. And then we'll wrap up with me introducing the Organized Teacher Framework, which is the course I've created to help you get your classroom organized. Then we're going to do a Q&A and a giveaway, which, speaking of giveaway, if you stick around till the end, I will compile all the names of everybody who's still in here at the end, and somebody will get to win one of these items, either a teacher lesson planner, a teacher care crate from the designer teacher, or a 3-month membership inside the organized teacher membership. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at what Margot's saying, not an option on the poll, but we'll be going forward with in-class instruction 5 days a week for all grades. Wow. That's, yeah, what Tiffany said. Wow, really? Thank you for letting us know that. Okay, so with that, I want to go over just a couple housekeeping things. You got a workbook in the email you should have. If you didn't, we'll drop it here in the chat box for you to help you work through all the material that we're going to be talking about today. And then you can print it off and use it to help you kind of think through what it is that you want to prioritize this school year. Also, if you are, I know how tempting it is to have other tabs open and whatnot, but if you will, just clear your tabs. I've got a great training plan for y'all for the next probably 40 minutes or so, and I'm really excited to share it with y'all. If you have questions, you can either drop them in the chat box. My sister Emily is here acting as my assistant today, and she is going to be compiling all the questions into a document for me that we can go through at the end, or you can just hang on to them till the end. All right, last thing before we get started, just a little bit behind the scenes about me. If we haven't met yet, I am Kelly Jackson, owner and creator of the Simply Organized Teacher, and I help busy and overwhelmed teachers get their classrooms organized so that they can stop spending so much time at school and do more of the things they love, including educate your kids. You can see here, I spent 6 years in the classroom. I taught 2nd and 3rd grade inside the dual language program. And so I know how hard teaching is. I know how stressful it is. And when you don't have an organized classroom as a base, it just adds to the overwhelm and the stress. So like I said, I spent 6 years in the classroom, creating relationships with my kids, loving on my kids, but I also just really loved organizing my classroom. If you were to ever find me up at school on a weekend or staying late on a Friday night, it was because I was reorganizing something or figuring out a new way to do something in my classroom, some kind of routine or structure, because that's just what I love to do. But now I get to help teachers across the globe get their classrooms organized. My husband and I live in Germany. We've been here about 1.5 years, and we moved here in 2018 for his job. We brought our dogs with us, Milo and Scout. So that's just a little bit behind the scenes about me. Let's get on to the goodness of what you came here for today. So the first thing we want to talk about is choosing your focus for this upcoming school year. There's always things that you could be doing, always things that you could be improving in the classroom. But how do you keep track of it all? How do you do it all? You just can't. And that's why we're going to start out by picking out your focus for the school year. So I want you to think through this last school year. What went well? What didn't go well? I know you're going to be tempted to say, coronavirus. Deanna, yes, you can be going through the workbook now if you want to be filling it out. If you didn't have a chance to print it off, you can, of course, do it later. There'll be a replay of this too if you want to watch it again later and go through it with the workbook printed out. I know that you're going to be tempted to say distance learning, online teaching, whatever was what was bad from last year. And I get the temptation for that, but I want you to think broader and bigger than that, because it's kind of like this excuse in education that we always use of time, right? We don't have enough time. Nobody has enough time. We could all, use some more time, but we can't get it. So what are we going to do instead? Same thing with online teaching, coronavirus. We can't get rid of it. So how are we going to adapt and overcome for this upcoming school year? So think through some of these areas that are here listed on the screen for you. What didn't go well? Do any of them seem like maybe an area that you can focus on for this upcoming year? I would love if you have anything popping into mind for you to pop it in the chat box. I'm going to take a sip of water really quick, but I would like to know what maybe didn't go so well for you last year that you'd like to improve on for this upcoming school year. Management and organization. Yeah, those two things, we're going to talk about them here in just a second. But the management and organization are two of the things you have to have, because if you have those things, then you can focus on actually educating, right? Time management is a big thing. We're going to talk about that, Anna Maria. Keeping record of behaviors. Management is what I'll be focusing on for the new school year. Transitions were not smooth. Yeah, transitions can make it really challenging. Being consistent, we're going to talk about that too. Had an administrator that dropped things to do last minute. I hate that. Okay, so let's keep going. Y'all keep talking. I'll glance over every few seconds. Trying to get. So what we're going to focus on today, the whole purpose of our talk today is figuring out what in your classroom you need to prioritize, do better at, improve on, so that you can transform your teaching. I like to say that if we can transform your classroom, we can transform your teaching. If you can get your organization in place and all the routines and structures that go with organizing, think about how much more time you can have to spend planning engaging lessons. If you can transform your management plan into one that allows you to not have to be, redirecting on a one-on-one basis and more time actually teaching and engaging with your kids, think about how that's going to transform your teaching. Or maybe, like some of y'all are saying, time management is something that you need to get a hold of both in and outside of the classroom. If you can get time management in place, meaning that you leave work at a decent time every day, you don't take work home with you, you stay on track with your kids. If you can get that in place, think about how much it's going to improve your stress, which is going to improve your mood, your teaching, and your relationships with kids, with adults. It's going to improve your teaching. So that brings us to our essential question of, what is your focus going to be for the 2021 school year? If you printed out the workbook ahead of time, then you may have already had some time to write things down. But if you haven't, I want to give you a few seconds to think about what you want your focus to be on for the upcoming school year. So think about those things we just talked about, the things y'all are talking about in the chat. What do you want to focus on for this upcoming school year? Because this is going to be there. Like I said, there's so much that you can do. If you can choose one focus, then every decision you make around your classroom, especially this summer while you're preparing, filters through that focus. And if it doesn't meet that focus, then you don't spend time. More time for small group instruction. That's awesome. This is the first year in which I managed my time like a rock star. Alexandra, way to go. You're going to have to share your secrets with us. So let's move on to, we've got our focus for the year, or if you didn't, you'll work on it after this. Let's talk about making a plan for your summer and creating a plan to make the most of your time off. All the things that you need to get done before school, but also, taking care of yourself and doing things that you enjoy. First of all, you've got to limit your time, and then you have to create a plan. Organization is all about creating plans and sticking to them. So that way, when you get off the plan, you always have something to come back to. The first thing I want you to do when you think about making a plan for your summer is to prioritize yourself. This is your summer break after all, right? And you had a really hectic year. So I want you to prioritize yourself. During the school year, I typically advocate, don't go up every weekend. Don't spend a ton of time on holiday breaks up at school. But summer is a little bit different because you've got to be getting prepared for the upcoming school year, especially with this summer when, everything is changing. You're going to have to spend some time preparing for the new school year. So once the school year starts back up, if you haven't taken time in the summer to prepare or think through these things, there's so much going on back to school. Even when it's just the teachers at school, getting things prepared, you don't have time to figure out your management plans. You don't have time to lesson plan for the first weeks of school. That is why it's so crucial to have some time during the summer that you're working on this, but I want you to set hours for that. Set guidelines, boundaries around your time to keep yourself from going overboard. So maybe you can do, make a plan of, I'm going to spend Tuesdays and Thursdays 2 hours a day working on school stuff, and that's it. Or maybe you are more of a person that I'm going to sit down on Monday from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. and just crank it out. Whatever it is that is going to work for you, make a plan of the time that you're going to spend. Because I don't want you spending your whole summer working, but I also don't want you spending your whole summer doing anything either, which obviously you're not that kind of teacher because you're here on a summer day hanging out with me going through this. But I am encouraging you to set goals for your break, set hours for yourself so that you don't end up spending your whole break working. I also want you to prioritize things that bring you joy. And in your workbook, there's a spot for you to jot down some of the things that you want to do for you over the summer, because I think it's really important. We'll talk about this here in a few minutes, to take care of ourselves and to prioritize. self-care. So organization is all about creating plans, being intentional when you're creating plans, and then sticking to those plans. So whenever you are starting a new school year or coming back from a break or even just a long holiday, wait, I think I totally jumped ahead. There's another screen that looks, or another slide that looks just like this here in a few minutes, and I totally jumped there. Boop, back here. Okay, creating list. So what I want you to do first is think about all the things that you have to do this summer to get ready for the upcoming school year. We're going to get to the framework of a classroom here in just a second, and you'll get some ideas, but I want you to just brain dump all of your ideas out that you need to get done before summer starts. Because again, once you get into the classroom in August, you're not going to have time for that. So anytime you are doing anything organization, I want you to follow this 3-step process. Make a list, prioritize your list, and then choose your top 3 or your focus. So once you've got your list written out, then order your list, everything on it, prioritize it in order of what is most important to you. This can be based off of like what's most important to you as far as what's going to take the longest to get done. So I need to prioritize that. Or maybe what is going to be the quickest to get done and give me some quick wins. That could be it. Maybe it's based on what didn't go well last year that you really want to make sure that you take time for this summer to plan for. Whatever it is, prioritize that list in order from most important to least important. And then the 3rd step is to pick your top 3. Just because you have 8, 10, 15 things on your list doesn't mean that you aren't going to get to those things or you won't do those things this summer. It just means that they're not in your top 3 priority. Because again, it's your break and I want you to put boundaries around what you're doing and the time that you're spending. So once you get your list made out, then I want you to make your plan. And in your workbook, you've got a page that looks just like this picture on the screen. And there's a spot for you to write down each of the top 3 or each of the top 3 things that you want to do. And then there's 4 questions that I want you to go through. So think about what from last year went well that you want to keep for this item, this thing that you want to prioritize. What do you want to keep from it? What needs to change about it? What didn't go well? And then what resources do you want to look into? And this can even be something as simple as like looking on Pinterest or looking on Teachers Pay Teachers for something. And then also a completion date. It's always good to give yourself a completion date. Carrie, we're going to get to the cake plan in just a second. That's a few slides away. So we haven't made it there. You're not missing anything. So make your plan, write out what these things are that you want to focus on, and then prioritize, and then make little steps of what you can do to accomplish that priority that you have. Okay, so now we're on to the cake, Carrie. So this is probably the juiciest part of the training, and it's the classroom framework. There are 4 parts that you need to have in an organized classroom. And just like we said, it's more than it just being pretty. These are the things that you need to have in place so that you can have an organized classroom that lets you transform your teaching. Take a quick sip of water. Okay, so we're going to first start off, any cake you make, right? You've got to have a base that it sits on, a platform. And that in your classroom, we're going to compare the classroom to a cake. That is your time management plan and your self-care plan. I know it seems kind of silly for it to be first, but if you don't make a plan now to prioritize yourself, then you're going to lose yourself to your classroom. You're going to lose yourself to your job. Self-care is so important. And so it's going to be really important this year, especially with everything going on. If you're doing some kind of hybrid of online and in-person teaching, it's going to be so imperative that you have a time management plan, that you have a self-care plan in place. When it comes to creating time management, creating self-care plans, I want you to prioritize you. And I'm going to get on my soapbox here in just a second, or just for a second. But in education, we are constantly told that teaching is all about the kids, right? And everything we do needs to be about the kids. And I totally agree with that. And we are in education for the kids. That is why you are so important. If you don't take care of yourself, then you cannot show up as your best self for your kids. That is why when I laid out this cake, I put time management and I put self-care at the absolute bottom, because you need that so that you can show up every single day being the best that you can for your kids. So create a plan now. What are your late days going to look like? What are your early days or leave on time days? What are your boundaries going to be around working on weekends or working on holidays? Also, tell somebody about this plan. Take time to write it out. Tell someone, tell a friend down the hall. Maybe you can even get them on board with you to create their own plan so that y'all can hold each other accountable. You've also got to have time management plans in place with your kids, meaning how are you going to structure your day so that they have enough time to get the work done that you give them? And if they don't, what is going to be your policy on making up incomplete work? So, for example, in my classroom with my kids, I used timers literally all day long. And I would say things like, okay, guys, we're going to do this activity. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to complete it. If it's not done, it becomes morning work tomorrow morning. And then I would hold them to that. So I told them what the boundary was. I held them to it. And then the next morning, if they didn't complete their work, they were doing it. The kids need these boundaries with time management. So we got time management first, and then we go on to classroom management. A lot of teachers, especially new teachers, which I know there's a few of y'all in here, get the keys to your classroom and you immediately run in and you're like, I'm going to decorate it this way and I'm going to put this bulletin board up here and all that kind of stuff. I know because I was that teacher. I did that. But then the first day of school comes and you don't have your management plans in place, and then disaster ensues. So you have got to have a classroom management plan in place. Just like with classroom organization, we had the quote to kind of encapsulate that classroom organization is more than just a pretty classroom. Same thing with classroom management. When we think classroom management, I think we typically go to behavior management and consequences and that kind of stuff, and that definitely is a part of it. But it's also managing all the people, materials, the space, your time. All of these things go into classroom management so that you can manage your class well. So obviously behavior is something you need to have. If you're a first year teacher, I want you to totally listen to what I'm about to say, because behavior management, you've got to have this in place to roll out on the first day of school. So I've talked a lot about behavior management on my blog, on my podcast. Inside the Organized Teacher Framework course, there is a whole lesson on the different behavior management plans you need to have and how to implement them, and a workbook to help you go through it and plan all that out. Because when you come up with your behavior management plans, you don't just want to come up with what you're going to do. You also want to plan out how you are going to teach that and model that and share that with your kids. If you look in the workbook that you got, there is a link to a podcast that I did on the 4 must-have behavior management plans. So go check that out. Make sure that you have a plan for each of those. So also with classroom management comes your daily routines. These are the things that you do without even thinking. So your morning arrival, the kids' morning arrival, the kids' afternoon departure, your afternoon departure, even things like grading papers, these are your routines. And it may seem a little bit pointless to figure out routines at this point right now in the summer, but the great thing about routines is they take away the decision making that you have to make. They take away that when you come back into the classroom at the end of the day after kids have left, you took them to bus or car or whatever, and you come back in and you're like, okay, what am I going to do in these next, this next hour that I have? What am I going to do? A routine takes that decision making away, that decision fatigue away, and tells you exactly what you want to do. So make sure to map out all of your routines as detailed as you can. And then lastly, in the classroom management is you want to have your systems and your procedures. These are the things that you're doing with the kids, the expectations, the procedures they follow in your classroom. Again, you want to have all of this laid out prior to the first day, because the first 2 to 3 weeks of school are going to be totally focused on implementing, teaching, practicing this ad nauseum. So you want to make sure that you have all of your plans all laid out really well, so that way you can educate your kids on them, inform them on them with confidence, and then hold them accountable to that. Ramona, I think it's like number 11 or 14. It's a really early podcast on Simply Teach. So, but even if you just go to the simplyorganizedteacher.com and type in behavior management plans, it'll come up on the search bar for you. So when you think of classroom management and implementing your behavior management plans, this is where I got ahead a few minutes ago. I was thinking this slide when I was talking. Anytime you come back from a holiday break or you come back from a long weekend, obviously starting a new school year, you want to make sure that you introduce your routines and your structures really thoughtfully. So on the screen are the steps that I recommend you walk through when it comes to introducing your management plans. And this goes for teachers that are teaching little kids all the way up to big kids. If you are a middle school or a high school teacher in here, I know that you're tempted to think like, I can't waste my time on having discussions about implementing procedures. Like, I only have 45 or 50 minutes with them. I'm not going to waste my time on it. But I want you to also think about how much time you're going to spend during the school year actually having one-on-one conversations, redirecting, how much more time you're going to waste doing that than just taking the time at the beginning of the year and laying it all out there, laying out your expectations so that way the kids know. High school teachers, I really encourage you to take time to do this. So first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you are having timely discussions. And what I mean by that is discussing routines, transitions, management plans, even as they come up. Don't bring your kids in on the first day of school and bring them all together and tell them what the whole day is going to look like, what all the plans are going to look like, and spend 45 minutes talking through all this. You're going to lose them, right? So don't talk about something until the time comes up for you to do that. For example, if you're going to specials, maybe 8 to 10 minutes before specials, you bring the kids together. So this is that timely discussion right before we go to specials. Bring them together. I say to the carpet, but you're probably not going to be able to have, class meetings on the carpet this year, but metaphorically bring them together to have a whole group discussion about what that procedure looks like, what they remember last year, what they remember or what they think are the right and the wrong things to be doing, and talk about that specific routine. So specials or walking in line to specials then and there. And then while you're talking through it, chart it with the kids, make a big anchor chart that can be displayed for the next few weeks. And then practice it. Have them practice it correctly, then incorrectly, and then correctly again. That way it shows that they know the difference between the incorrect and correct ways to do it. Then you go to specials, you go wherever it is that you're going, and you reward them and praise them, like crazy, and to the point where you think, I'm praising way too much. But do that, because then the next time you leave the classroom to go somewhere, you just have to have a quick 20-30 second discussion, review the chart. They already had that positive reinforcement from you praising them the whole time you were going to specials, that they know what the expectations are and they are going to practice them. Now, management with online teaching is going to obviously look a little bit different. With this year and classroom management in the online space, you're going to have to really think through what your procedures and what your systems are going to be so that you can lay them all out and give them to the kids in some kind of written form so that they know what to expect from you. So things like online teaching or online meeting times, how to contact you, what your hours are, how you're going to grade and return papers. There's a whole mini course. If you just head to the simplyorganizedteacher.com, I've got a free course on how to get organized for online teaching that you can join. And it talks about creating this document that you can use that houses all of your expectations. If you're doing some kind of hybrid system or going back to school, you have got to have a good classroom management plan in place and laid out and planned out, because your kids are going to be, it's going to be a long time since the last time they've been in the classroom. So they are going to need a lot of strict boundaries put around what the expectations are. And lastly, whatever this year looks like, consistency is going to be key to your classroom management. If you are not consistent, your kids are going to pick up on that and they are going to run with it and run all over you. The most important thing that you can do, whether you're a teacher of big kids or little kids, is to be consistent. And especially at the start of the school year, the minute you go soft on them and, let them just go a little bit farther than what you initially told them you were going to hold them to, they are going to take advantage of it. So be consistent. If consistency, and I think somebody said that earlier, that consistency was difficult for you, I would challenge you to think about making that a focus for this year. When I think about teachers that I worked with, the teachers who had the biggest issues with management in their classroom, it all came down to not being consistent. And I always say, like, the biggest piece of advice my mom gave me when I became a teacher was to start out strong, because you can always loosen up as the year goes on, but you can't start out loose. I don't like that term. You can't start out easy. Doesn't sound good either. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. And then try to get stricter as the year goes on. So start out with those boundaries and hold fast to them. Okay, so now my favorite part of the cake, which is classroom organization. And this is actually where setting up things, where you're going to be setting up things, how you're going to arrange things. Just like with a cake, if you don't have these bottom layers, if you don't have these bottom things in your classroom, your organization is going to go out the window. You can get it really organized, but if you don't have management in place, organization is pretty useless. So what I want you to do this summer is take time now to think through how and where you're going to put things in your classroom. Your classroom layout is so important because it dictates the flow of your classroom. So start with thinking about your whole group and your small group and your classroom library. Where are you going to put those areas? Again, whole group is going to be different this year. You may not be able to have a carpet whole group setting. I've gotten a lot of questions about desk, because you're going to obviously have to be really mindful of the social distancing, and your classroom probably is not big enough to hold all your kids 6 feet apart. I always advocate for cooperative learning, and that is kids being close to each other, working with each other, talking with each other. And there's other ways that you can go about getting cooperative learning going in your classroom, even with desk spread out. So I would never on a normal year advocate for putting your kids in rows like this, but that's probably what we're going to have to do this year. But you can still get cooperative learning with a structure like this. So you can see the big thing about cooperative learning is you've got shoulder partners and face partners. So shoulder partners, if you don't know, are number 1 and 2. They share a shoulder, so they are partners. And then 3 and 4. And then 1 and 4 are face partners, and 2 and 3 are face partners. So you can see in this picture here, you can still achieve that with the desk spread out. The front 2 kids are just turning around to the back 2 kids. You can also, I would really encourage you to make plans to teach outside as much as you can. If you are in a school that has windows that are open, to be sure to have those things open, so that way you can still have those interactions with kids, talking and communicating with each other, because they are going to need that this year, especially after having so much time apart. Okay, so let's move on to everything has a home. This is my number 1 rule when it comes to classroom organization, and that is that everything has got to have a home. When teachers' classrooms are not organized, it's because they don't have set aside places for things to go. So they don't know where to put things when they come into their classroom, or they don't know where to look for things when they can't find something. So then you waste time, right? So when you're mapping out your classroom, think through what things you have in your classroom, where you want to store them, how you want to store them. Again, all of this comes back to creating that plan for organization so that you can spend more time educating your kids. And then you need a plan for all that stuff, all your student materials, your lesson plan materials, your resources, your stuff. So think about where you're going to store all these things. How are you going to make the most of the limited space that you have in your classroom? When you are mapping out your classroom, include notes about where you want to put things. Okay, I've got this cabinet. What do I want to put in there? This bookshelf, what do I want to put there? Take time to map all of that out, because then when you go into your classroom, you know exactly what to do and where to put things. So that brings us to our last tier, although here it's a candle, but that is decorating. Again, none of this matters. Decoration does not matter if you don't have the bottom stuff established. So decoration is your top tier when we're talking about the beginning of the school year. But then once the school year is in session and your classroom is set up and you've got everything moving and grooving, that top layer becomes your engaging lessons, the respect that you have with your kids, the relationships you have with them. You want to have these engaging lessons, right? You know that feeling of looking out at your classroom and seeing the light bulbs go off and seeing the kids engage with each other and with the work that you have them doing. Those things are going to be really hard to accomplish if you don't have those foundational pieces in place. If one of those things didn't go well for you last year, and it had to do with behavior, then you've got to think through, what did I not put in place last year with a management plan? If respect was an issue for you in your classroom, I know that it can sometimes be the kids or their age or their hormones, but also, did you have a time management or self-care plan in place? I know that seems a little silly, but if you don't, then you're probably more irritable with them, you're less patient with them, and whether or not you actually act on those feelings, your kids are going to sense that tension. They're going to feed off that. No management plan in place. Again, if you don't tell the kids what they need to be doing, how they should be acting, how they should be doing things in your classroom, they're not going to know what to do. They crave boundaries, they crave structure, so give that to them. A disorganized classroom is going to add to the stress and the overwhelm that the kids feel when they are in your classroom. They're going to feed off that. So that brings me to the part where I talk about the course that I created to help you create an organized classroom. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take 5, max 6 minutes to just run through this, tell you about the course, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So you're here on, what's today? Thursday? Yeah. A Thursday morning, or whenever you're watching this, if you're watching the replay, instead of hanging out with your own kids or binging something on Netflix. And that tells me that you prioritize your career, you prioritize your growing in your profession. I know that you are stressing about this upcoming school year and how you can make the most of it, and classroom organization is going to be the key to that. So I'm going to read off some quotes here in a second after I take a drink of water, but when I'm reading them off, I want you to give me a thumbs up or some kind of something in the chat box to tell me if you've ever struggled with thinking this or feeling this. Okay, so first, do you start off the year organized, but then by mid-November, oops, sorry. My dad's calling me. And then by mid-November, it's a mess again. Or maybe you have a hard time managing your stress level and then you go home with a really long to-do list. Yes, lots of thumbs up and yeses over there. What about struggling to stay consistent with your routines and your management plan when things start to pile up through the year? All of these things that I'm sharing right now are things that teachers actually messaged me and told me, you know, I'm struggling with this. And then I'm sure there's a lot of you, because I know I struggled with this as a teacher. You're not being the teacher that you envisioned yourself to be, right? We get into teaching and my dad keeps calling me. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. My sister is here. Tell dad to stop calling me. I'm so sorry, y'all. You get into teaching thinking that you are going to be this teacher who prioritizes your kids and be doing these great things with your kids, but you get in and there's so much to do that you can't be the teacher that you want to be, right? You know how important it is to be meeting with your kids in a small group setting, but maybe you can't because it's covered in games and resources and kids stuff. And maybe even there's a cake on there from Nothing But Cakes to celebrate a teacher's birthday. And so every time you try to clear off your table to meet with kids, you're wasting valuable time that you could be spending with your students instead. Or maybe a lot of you, I'm sure, have a teacher desk that looks like the one on the left where, thank you, Donna. I feel so bad. He called me 3 times, which makes me kind of nervous, but he's probably like, why is she ignoring my call? But your desk looks like the one on the left where papers just go to die, right? And you can't find anything. You spend valuable time that you could be on writing engaging lessons or spending time with your kids, instead looking for stuff. If you want to spend more time focusing on the transformation of your students, less time managing your behavior issues, if you want to spend more time focusing on the growth of your kids than looking for where you put a manipulative or a paper for a lesson, then this course is going to be for you. So the Organized Teacher Framework course is the course I created to help you transform your classroom so that you can transform your teaching. This is whatever that focus is that you're thinking about for this upcoming year. This course is going to help you get that plan in place so that you can do it. You can figure it all out on your own, but again, that's wasting more valuable time. If you want to cut your time down at school, if you want to be able to leave your classroom for professional development and leave your kids there and trust that it's not going to go haywire while you're gone. If you just want to be able to spend more time with your family, then you need someone to help you, and I want to be that person. So here's a quick rundown of everything that's in the course. So there's 4 modules: time management, self-care. It's this cake that we talked about: classroom management, getting organized, staying organized. And then you can see all the lessons that are in there that we talk about in each of the section, in each of the modules. I'll come back to that screen in just a minute, but here's a quick peek inside the course, what you get. So you get a video training from me that walks you through how to set up these things. And then you get a workbook. It's, I think, like 40 or 50 pages of material that you can actually plan out what you need to get in place for this upcoming school year. So you can see there's classroom organization. What's your student organization plans going to be? What are your daily routines going to be? The whole purpose of the workbook is for you to fill it out while you're going through the course. So that way, when you walk into your classroom on the first day, that you can get in there, you've got everything you need to do right there written out. Here's those lessons again, and you can see there are, most of them are in black. Those are the lessons that are going to apply across the board, no matter what grade level. I told you my experience was in elementary, so I can talk about organization and management in elementary all day long, but I can't do that with high school. So I brought on 2 high school educators to talk about classroom management and classroom organization. And then the pink lessons are going to be a little bit more elementary geared. Not that a secondary teacher couldn't get something from it, but they're going to be just a little bit more elementary geared. I'm also including in the course 4 additional bonus materials. So these are extra goodies that you get just for purchasing. They're available in the platform right now. You're going to get the Classroom Organization Made Simple workbook. So this is, if you were to bring me into your classroom to help you reorganize your classroom, this is the exact steps that we would go through to get your classroom organized. You're going to get the Calm Down Strategy ebook to help de-escalate students, the Behavior Management Economic System, which is what I use to manage my kids and teach financial literacy, and then a substitute planning, or a training on how to plan for a substitute. It's a virtual training where I walk you through how to plan, organize, and handle a substitute in your classroom. There's sub-plan templates. So you can get all of this today for $110. So you get the course plus the bonus items. Emily is going to drop a link in the chat box for you to be able to go check out the sales page if you want. I'm also going to include, for anybody that purchases today, a fast action bonus. So this is an additional module all about getting ready for the first day of school. So we talk about how to plan for Meet the Teacher Night, how to plan for the actual first day of the school year, and then how to plan for the first few days after that, the first weeks of school. You can get that if you purchase today. So like I said, all of this for $110. Bonus, the whole course, the bonus, and then the fast action bonus. I do have 3 different payment options. So you can, of course, pay all up front if you want, or there's a 3-month and a 6-month payment plan if that would be better for you. Because if classroom organization is something that you want to improve on this year, if it's something that is a priority for you, I don't want the sticker price of it to keep you from getting the material and the resources that can help you get your classroom organized. Okay. I hope I made it in under 5 minutes. We are going to wrap up here with coming back to our essential question. What is your focus going to be for this school year. Make sure that you have whatever it is you want to prioritize this year. Make sure that you have it figured out as soon as you can so that you can filter, like I said at the beginning, all the decisions that you make this summer through that focus. If it doesn't support that focus, then you don't waste your time on it. Okay, so let's answer some questions. If you will drop questions that you have in the chat box, I'm going to take a quick sip of water and scroll back up. I saw a few things come through. I'm scrolling. There's lots of thumb marks. Okay. Alexandra says, I taught history and social studies to 5, setting rules and procedures in the beginning. It made my life run so much smoother. Yeah. I talk about Linda Cardamus a lot from Teach for the Heart, and she shares on my podcast about how she's a secondary teacher, and she went into her first year of teaching thinking like, oh, I'll just figure it out as it goes. And a few weeks into school, her principal called her into her office and was like, hey, you have got to get management in place, because she was spending so much time redirecting instead of actually teaching. I think I've not gone far enough with mapping out procedures. I have some in place. Yeah, Deanna, the procedures is really going to help you know exactly what it is that you need to focus on and tell you exactly what it is that you need to teach your kids for the procedures. So definitely take time to map those out. Does anybody have questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay. If nobody has questions, then we can end here. I'll wait for a couple more minutes to see if anybody has questions, but if not, then you can go ahead and hop off here. If you do stick around till the end though, I will be emailing out to the giveaway winner here at the end when we wrap up. And so be checking your email for that if you want to get in on that. Okay, Talitha, when thinking about classroom management, do you plan a lesson around each routine? No, not a whole lesson, because I think that can take a lot of time. I would just think through like a 10-minute mini lesson almost. If it's something big that you want to talk with them, then yeah, you can have a whole lesson where you introduce with some kind of read aloud, talking about behavior or social emotional kind of stuff. But I think just a quick 10-minute mini lesson will be good enough. Ramona, I got the ebook and really looking forward to going through it. Yay, I'm glad you got it. Do you include or ask the kids when your physical space isn't working? Yeah, Stephanie, I think you should. I love class meetings and I advocate for them a lot. And that's one of the things that you get to do in a class meeting is kids can contribute like, hey, this isn't working in our classroom. And you obviously come into a meeting and discuss it and let them really be the ones who are deciding what the solution is going to look like. So yes, I would definitely include them in that discussion. And I think she says she's in 5th grade, which definitely, but I think even in kinder or 1st grade, you can have those conversations. Obviously not at the beginning of the school year, it's going to take some time, but even with the little kids, you can create the environment where y'all can have those kinds of conversations. How do you do behavior management with distance learning? So with distance learning, behavior management is going to be a little bit difficult because if you're not, I guess let me clarify, Tara, are you, like when you were doing it this past year, were you having your whole class on there at one time? And if so, were you having very many kids like show up? Let me know that because that might dictate my answer. But I think Zoom meetings with 10 kids. So I think behavior management with that is there isn't going to be as much of this like rewarding kids kind of thing because you're not in person with them. I think it's going to be more about your structure and your routines of like, this is what it looks like to be present on a Zoom meeting. Here are the expectations. This is what it looks like, and really laying that out and having those discussions with them. Any suggestions for teachers organizing at home so their homes don't get into overwhelm? Are you talking about organizing your school stuff, like if you're teaching at home, or just organizing during the summer? Okay, hold on. I'm going back to question. Okay, so Valerie, yeah, Valerie's asking, any suggestions for teachers organizing at home so their homes don't get into overwhelm? I think anytime you organize something, try to keep it in a corner. I have tons from 20 years, books and papers. Yeah, I would try to keep it to one room, even one corner of a room if you can, and give yourself really strict boundaries on how much time you're going to spend on organizing this stuff at home, because I think if we don't give ourselves time limits, then we kind of just think, I'm just going to spend whenever I have a free moment or whatever. But give yourself time limits for this so that you can come into that designated room and sit down for an hour, have like piles. I'm thinking books and papers, you're going to have a lot of piles. And always, anytime you're dealing with papers or piles, think through the themes. What are the things that you're seeing, and make piles for those. But again, just keeping it confined to one area of the room and then giving yourself time limits on that. Okay. Do you advise to choose minimalism in the classroom? Okay. Yes, I think so. My first year, I decorated my classroom. I had it looking, what I thought was so cute, and different backgrounds on bulletin boards and different borders. And by year 2 or 3, I walked into my partner teacher's room and I was like, my classroom is so visually overwhelming to me. I've got to get stuff down. And I think that that's the same for our kids. Too much stuff is going to be overwhelming and overstimulating for them. So it's hard because you also want to create like a safe, welcoming space. But I think in the classroom, less is more, especially at the beginning, because you're decorating and adding things to the wall, and adding the clutter is going to come as the school year progresses. Okay, what do you do when you feel like you've lost control? I think you're providing an excellent way to avoid it as much as possible. If the moment comes, what do you do to put the pieces back together? This is why I talk about routines and structures being so important, because, for example, when I think about like my work day, I have a pretty structured like schedule of how I spend my time, what I focus on each day. It doesn't mean that I always stick to that plan 100%, but it gives me the safety of whenever I have a day, a really off day, or I need to just not work for a day, it gives me a place to come back to. So that's why I think taking this time in the summer to plan out your routines and your structures ahead of time, I don't want you to feel like you have to totally be confined to whatever it is that you wrote down on a piece of paper. This is all I can do, the only thing. The purpose of a routine or structure is to bring you back there when things do go off the rails a little bit. Any advice on prioritizing and keeping student work for portfolios or samples? Yes. So I would just get a box, like a plastic bin that you can put hanging file folders in, and give each kid a file and just put their stuff in there, whatever it is that you want to keep, but limit it to that one box. And I talked earlier about homes, right? And when we were talking about classroom organization, giving everything a home. So make this box with files to be the home, and all that goes in there is whatever it is that you want to record for their portfolios or samples or whatever. Do you have any ideas for classroom management where half the students will be present in the room and the other half will be viewing through a live broadcast? Okay, I'll be teaching immunocompromised students with behavioral disorders. I don't know who Emily's putting it here in the thing for me. So I didn't see who posted that. But okay, Jade, I want to give you like a big round of applause. That is going to be really challenging. I think the best thing that you can do is to really be consistent with whatever it is that you come up with. I think we're also just going to have to give ourselves a lot of grace this year, because teaching kids in a classroom that have behavioral disorders in the first place is challenging. And then having to add on the component of having kids online viewing, that's going to be really hard. So I think you're just going to have to really lay out your plans with the kids, and maybe even involve the kids in some of your, obviously go into the year with what you want your plans to be, but kind of have the kids help you. You know how you can put ideas into kids and make them think that they are coming up with it, but maybe with kids that have some behavioral issues, that buy-in of having them contribute to whatever it is that is going to be managing them might help them feel a little bit more motivated to stick with it. Okay, let's see. Do you have reference material to organize my home office for teaching materials and home office? I actually have a room all to myself and it can become overwhelming too. Stephanie, go check out, if you just go to thesimplyorganizedteacher.com and type in working from home. I think that should come up. There is a whole mini course I put on getting organized for teaching from home and getting organized for that. So I would recommend that. Okay, do you have a set routine during your planning? Is that a bad time to clean up? I always feel like I can't organize my room from home, but I can plan. Okay, so Dana, I love your question. Actually, yes. So what I talk about, and I talk about it in the course, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, is theming your days. And when you theme your days, you basically give your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday a topic or a theme of what you're going to be doing that day. So for me, what I did, what my lesson planning routine looked like was Wednesdays, I guess it was more Thursdays during my conference period, I would spend that whole time lesson planning. Now, granted, this was after a few years of teaching, and so I could whip out lesson plans in a 45-minute window, no problem. But I would spend just that Thursday only writing out lesson plans, writing them in my planner, taking the plans that my team gave me, making them my own, putting them in my planner. And then Friday, I would spend actually getting the materials and the resources together. So only Thursday and Friday were devoted to getting lesson plans ready. Your other, the other part you said was, is that a bad time to clean up my room? So what I would encourage you to do this year is have that be a routine for whenever you leave the classroom, a quick 2-minute classroom pickup if the classroom is really that messy, or if things need to be put away. Another really good routine to get in is as the kids are putting things away. So you finish up the math lesson and they're, throwing their scraps of paper away and putting their folders away. Take that same time to put away whatever it is that you just used for that lesson. So that way you aren't having to clean up while the kids are away at specials or wherever they are. You can actually focus on what it is that you need to do. Okay, any more questions? You're welcome, Meredith. Any more questions in the group? Let me know. I think that's it, but thank y'all so much for coming in. Oh, Valerie has a question. What tools and materials have worked for organizing besides file cabinets? They tend to fill up and I hope to scan and make folders for quicker. So I would encourage you to just take it all online. If you can't, I don't know how long, wait, I can't even remember. Valerie, were you the one who said you had 20 years of stuff? I can't remember, I'm sorry. But I would try to get as much of it online as you can. Really, I would encourage you to not have a whole lot of stuff in a filing cabinet. And I've got a video on my YouTube channel about how to organize your filing cabinet so that you don't put a lot of stuff in there. As far as other things though, again, I would just come back to those crates, or the box I said a minute ago, whoever was asking about the samples and portfolios, a box like that with file folders or milk crates are really great. And you can also hang file folders in there. I would recommend that. Crystal, yay, you signed up for the course. Woohoo, I'm excited. Yes, there will be a replay. Bertha, you're just joining, no problem. I think it'll take a few minutes for like the system to do its magic, but then it will record and send out to y'all whenever it's done. Guys, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you joined and hung out with me for the last hour. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to join in on the Organized Teacher Framework, it's opened up till next Wednesday. The doors close, enrollment closes next Wednesday. But I would love to have you. And don't forget, if you join today, you can get in on the first day of school bundle as well. Donna, I don't have a certificate for attending this workshop. I can make one, I guess. I didn't even think about that. You do get a certificate for the course if you do that and complete it. Deanna, I'm so glad that you did the year at a glance. I don't know if Talitha's still in here, but she is inside the Organized Teacher membership. And we also spent last month going over creating a year at a glance. And like she was in the Facebook group talking about how much more at ease she feels by having a year at a glance. So I'm so glad that that worked for you. That was like my lifesaver. Who asked, I can't remember who asked what to do when you feel like you've lost control. I don't have the name for that person. A year at a glance would also be a really good thing. Again, go to YouTube, search year at a glance on my YouTube page, or even my website. I've got a whole blog about it. That is a great thing for you to have in place. So that way, when things do get off the rail, you can come back to your year at a glance and see exactly where you need to be in your curriculum. Okay, well, y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you again so much for joining. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.